I started Domestic Angels as an allergic reaction to corporate life. My friends and family all went into shock. What do you think? Are you insane? And, somewhere during the second bottle of wine that we were sharing, I just make this very clear, you become detached from your instinct because what other people are saying must be right, because otherwise you're going to leave the herd and it won't be safe. It won't be safe. It's not safe for who? It would be very unwise of me to suggest that you don't give it any thought, like myself. However, and for goodness sake, don't have an adventure. What would you want to do that for? Find your tribe in order to protect your sanity so that they support your vision, not their limitations, which will limit you.
When I started, thought, okay, well, in order to be successful, I have to act as if. I have to speak like a CEO. I have to have the morning routine of a CEO.
Absolutely not.
Right?
No. You're going into a whole new thing there. This is where hustle culture goes very wrong in the self-employed arena.
I am so happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Reclaiming Bossy. Could you please start by introducing yourself as if you're speaking to someone you've never met before?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm Sam. My business is Domestic Angels. I'm here today because I've had the most amazing invitation to come to London to feature and be a guest on the Reclaiming Bossy podcast. And I couldn't be happier to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes, of course. And can you please tell us a little bit more about how you started Domestic Angels and why?
I started Domestic Angels as an allergic reaction to corporate life, is the short form version. The long form version is somewhat more interesting. So our son Jack was 6 months old when I went back to work after maternity leave. It was before all of the laws changed, so there wasn't much in the way of maternity leave and you weren't meant to go back on flexible hours. There was none of that. That was actually a year before any type of flexible request was allowed. That's how old I am. And I went back and it was all wrong. It felt wrong. I felt wrong. I was unhappy. And I was going out the house very early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, coming in at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And you just felt like you're a slave in some sort of trap, an obligation. And of course, I'd been to university, I'd done all of the right things, I'd been a good girl and conformed, but fundamentally by the Christmas, I was deeply unhappy. And I don't actually remember that Christmas very well. And that was my son's first Christmas. When we went back to work in the new year, so that was 2002, I'd made a decision I needed to leave, but I needed to leave with redundancy. I needed a bit of financial cushion if I could get a payoff, in order to create some breathing space for myself. And restructuring, reprocessing was all part of my job role. So I was able to help the company to make the very kind decision to make me redundant. And I walked away. Now, here's the interesting thing. It had been such a dark time. I hadn't actually told anybody this was what I was doing. Not even my husband. He had no idea.
Wow.
No idea. And he came home from work on the day that I'd been made redundant, because these things happen at certain times of the day. I was home by lunchtime, and on the way home I'd bought the DVD of Titanic and a large bar of chocolate, and I got on the sofa. I'm doing that for myself. I kind of went to the stop button immediately. He came in the door with our son, because he'd done the nursery run. He said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Got something to tell you." And do you know what? He just listened and went, "Okay." And just let me do what I needed to do. So Domestic Angels came about a few weeks later. My friends and family all went into shock. What do you think? Are you insane? You were doing really well. You were earning well. You had all of the bells and whistles with medical insurance, all the protection that you could want, and lots of potential going forward. Are you crazy? I was no, I've been really unhappy. And then a very good friend of mine, who at the time was an entrepreneur, called me round and said, I think we need a chat. I've got wine. And by the end of the first bottle of wine, she said, right, as you've got this time on your hands and I haven't, because I've got 3 children and a big house under a factory and businesses to run, can you find me a cleaner? I said, great, yeah, I'd love to help out and do that. And somewhere during the second bottle of wine that we were sharing, I'll just make this very clear, we came up with the name Domestic Angels, and the rest is history. That's how Domestic Angels came about. And you think about it, it was very much to do with instinct. It was gut instinct. There was no business plan. There was no clear thought process. It was a natural requirement.
This is so powerful. And before we step into the Domestic Angels journey, I want to talk more about that decision, because it's something that I'm seeing more and more. People are finding corporate just like uninspiring and unfulfilling, and they're wanting to take the leap to try something else.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us grow up with the template of what success should be like. And the whole reason I started this podcast was to show that there's so many different templates of creating success and doing things differently, and having these stories where we co-create that for young people to see. How did you make that decision? How did you know that it was intuition and not anxiety? And how did you have the bravery to leave something that was unfulfilling and unhappy?
None of those thoughts occurred to me at the time that it happened. I literally did what I needed to do. When I look back on it, I was clearly very comfortable with being my true self, to follow that instinct and just do what I needed to do. I suppose if you said, why didn't I talk to anybody about it? That's probably a really good question. Well, what I did at that time was unusual. People didn't do that 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And that is recent history. They didn't do it. They didn't abandon the traps of corporates and the alleged bonuses and perks and positivity of it. They just didn't do it. You stayed within. Had I talked about it with other people, they wouldn't have understood it, because it was an alien decision. It was quite unique at the time. It's much more normal now. Like you said, people are actively chatting about it now. And the other thing that would happen is that people would then share their limitations with me. And their limitations would be, don't change, because that's good. You've got a pension, you've got this, you've got that, and you'll be able to pay the mortgage and have 2 holidays a year. That's their limitations, not mine. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't have that consciousness. Consciousness has come much, much later down the line for me. So it was definitely a gut instinct, and I just trusted myself and did what I needed to do without giving it much in-depth thought.
That's beautiful. And I know you said that you, looking back, trusted yourself, but I think that's something people struggle with, of like they maybe can hear what is right for them, but they just maybe take the opinions of others more seriously, and they think of what they should do, and they focus on that rather than on what's calling them and what will make them fulfilled.
Look, of course, we all do that. We all do that at some points. The question is to ask yourself, is that really being you, truly you, or are you conforming to the crowd? Okay, because, and this goes back thousands of years, if you left the herd, you'd be on your own and very likely to be killed. It's the same with animals in the wild now. You've seen them on the TV programs when you see herds of beasts running across the plains and the deserts. If one falls away from the herd, then it's vulnerable to the predator. And it's the same theory. And that's something I've come to understand better, since I've become much more conscious about myself and life, is that's what happens. And that limits people from making decisions to just go with their real gut instinct, because you become detached from your instinct because what other people are saying must be right, because otherwise you're going to leave the herd and it won't be safe. It won't be safe. It's not safe for who?
Yeah. You're so right. And what I want to link that to around safety is you took the leap to create Domestic Angels pretty quickly after leaving corporate. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time overthinking when they want to take a leap. They think the business plan needs to be better. They think they just need to, they almost hesitate on making a decision because they hesitate on making the decision out of fear and out of craving safety. How did you just trust yourself and just go and start?
Because the opportunity was there, because my friend said, could you find me a cleaner? And then we came up with Domestic Angels. And so it didn't require overthinking. It didn't need that much consideration. It's like, okay, let's go with that. Let's run with that. Let's see what happens. What can go wrong? You just try. It doesn't, and in actual fact, it doesn't matter too much if things go wrong, because you can always adjust, change, do something else or whatever. I had nothing to lose. And just moving forward was a really good thing, having an experiment. I was free to just give it a go. And you're right, people do overthink it because they don't want to leave the safety of corporate before making the step. And yes, of course, it would be very unwise of me to suggest that you don't give it any thought, like myself. However, overthinking isn't helpful. If you're overthinking, if you're giving it too much thought, then you are not in touch with your gut instinct, in which case I'd say you've got something else going on that you need to address right there and then. It's to do with the trap of conforming, but also the programming that we're given over the years in our lives to overthink things and resist temptation, don't leave the herd, and for goodness sake, don't have an adventure. What would you want to do that for?
Yeah, and that links beautifully to what we were talking about off camera just before we started this interview around limiting beliefs, and how I think as we grow up and we move through our lives, we pick up beliefs around the kind of person we are. You were talking about maths. I was telling you about how I never considered myself to be smart or successful or powerful. And
look at you now. So that's a lie, isn't it?
But I think a lot of people don't take the jump because of those beliefs, and it takes a lot of active recognition and rewiring to move past them. And so what was your journey with that, and what limiting beliefs did you have to work through, and how did you work through them? Okay,
so we can floor that particular theory straight off, because I didn't even know I had those beliefs when I left corporate and went out to start Domestic Angels. So it's okay, you don't have to do all of the work before you take the leap, okay? It's okay to take the leap and find out afterwards. Then the other trick is to remember that you will continue finding out over the years. And depending on what your circumstances are, I was a mum, so I had quite a big distraction. Being a mum does stop you from getting to know yourself, because you're very busy doing this other full-time job at the same time as creating your business or whatever else you're choosing to do. So, this awareness and self-belief came further down the line. So let's get back to, what was your question again?
How do you work through them once you've identified them? You said it took some time to identify them, but now that you are aware of some of them, what do you use? Is it journaling? Is it pep talks? Is it just going and doing it? How do you work through the limiting belief?
Limiting beliefs. Okay, so it's about being aware of what's going on inside of you. So if you think of the limiting beliefs as being a whole bunch of levers, and I use these limiting beliefs as looking like levers inside me, that's how I imagine them quite a lot. If I'm reluctant to do something, or I have a reaction to a situation, I know there's something in here triggering. And I acknowledge the fact that the trigger is there, and I try to remove myself from everybody and everything else to think, well, what's that trigger? What's that all about? And is it true? Or is it lying to me? What's that all about? And that's about creating space and knowing yourself. So having a really great awareness of what's happening inside you. This is all about being conscious, being a conscious, aware business leader is, hang on, what was that feeling? Let me just address it, and knowing it's okay. So that's one of my big tools. I love to journal. I journal at least once a week. I've got a beautiful book. I take it to the beach.
Ooh.
And I've got to write in there and get things out. Write about what I've achieved in the week, what I'm doing next week, all towards my goals. What did I achieve towards my goals this week? And anything in particular that's really bothering me goes in that book. And, that just might happen on that day because I just need to get it out and work through it. Because I love to write, actually, and write with a good pen and my beautiful book. And just getting those thoughts out sometimes can really help me work through and process anything that's blocking.
Yeah, 100%. Have you ever heard of the morning pages?
No, tell me about them.
So there's this thing called the Artist Way. It's a challenge. It's now becoming popular again, but it was written many, many years ago as a book. And part of it is this thing called morning pages where you write 3 pages every morning, stream of consciousness.
Oh.
And it's just kind of like meant to clear out everything that you've got. And I realized I have been slacking recently doing it. Also, I don't think that 3 is sustainable, so I just go with like 1, 2 if I'm having a heavy day. But I used to wake up tired, stressed, and in a bad mood as my default. And I realized through doing the journaling that like sometimes we just repeat the same thing again and again and again, and until you write it and you clear it, you can't like move past it. And what you were saying about emotional regulation is so important, because I'm way, way, way earlier in my business journey than you. I started my company like 7 months ago. But I found that emotional regulation is the hardest part of it, not the admin, not the spreadsheets, not the recruitment. It's the constant mental battle of, am I good enough to do this? Do I know what I'm doing? Is this the right thing? Is it going to work? So as someone who's been doing it for a lot longer, how have you managed to emotionally regulate and stay happy and sane throughout the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship?
I'd say for the first few years, I just didn't talk to anybody about it. And when I did, I realised it was a bad idea because of other people's expectations about what business should be and I should therefore be like, and I didn't fit anybody's expectations. I wasn't out there smashing it, making £5 million or whatever their expectation was. And I think one person said to me, oh, well, I wouldn't do my numbers like that. I would spend that money. I wouldn't give it to the tax man. I think, but I pay my taxes, it's just different values. There was different feedback. So, I just kept my own counsel, actually, for a long time. And it served me well. It really did serve me well. But again, I come back to the point I made before. This was at the beginning of this century where mums like me were not doing what I was doing, or very few of us were, and doing it in a way that was to do with our femininity and our values as mums, rather than the conformity of hustle culture and everything that comes with that. I was doing it absolutely of my own spirit. So there weren't too many people for me to talk to. There were a couple of people who really got me, who I could talk to, but not very often. Simply because I didn't see them very often, really. And I just had to hold on to those straws. So who you surround yourself with is important. So find your tribe. Find your tribe in order to protect your sanity, so that they support your vision, not their limitations, which will limit you.
Yeah.
That is really important.
100%. I do think also on the flip side, the importance of self-validation is so key. And this is something I really respect in your story. It's something I struggled with a lot when I started, because I don't think innately I had that processing. I would go and speak to people immediately. I'd go and tell my friends, I'd tell my family. And I had to build in a pause, make your own opinion on it first, have a little think, and then you can go share. Did you find the self-validation piece was innate, or was that something that you had to learn to do as well?
It's really interesting what you're saying there, where you have to pause and process before having that conversation. This is really true. I think it's all part of being an entrepreneur. And our heads are extremely busy all of the time. You know, when you've got a computer turned on and you've opened up your search engine, but you haven't just got one tab open, you've got 4. That's the inside of my head.
Mine too.
It's the inside of my head. It's the nature that we are and we're comfortable with. Or rather, when we are in our best flow, doing our best thing, we are absolutely comfortable with that. It's all over the place, but it's us. We work that way. And so actually taking that pause and processing is really important, because I can guarantee you that 9 out of the next 10 people you speak to will not understand where you're coming from. So taking that pause and processing is actually to help your audience to be able to understand where you're coming from. Otherwise, they're like, oh my goodness, there's like 5 aeroplanes coming overhead and now she said something that I understand. It's really the most bizarre situation, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's not a label, it's not that. It's because you've got an entrepreneurial brain. It's how we operate.
And how did you've mentioned like how times were different when you started around the culture. I think now people are celebrating having an entrepreneurial brain, potentially the neurodivergence that comes with it. I definitely have neurodivergence, and like 1 in 3 founders have some sort of like dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, and it's becoming way more normalized with social media. But you said at the time, mums, there was more of a template of like what you should do in terms of work and balance. How did you like move past that and communicate with the people in your life? Like once you did start talking to people, how did you share, I'm doing things differently, come along with me on this journey?
They just found out for themselves. Success was the proof. When Domestic Angels was made the Home-Based Business of the Year in 2013, National Home-Based Business of the Year, I think it said it all. Everybody went, oh, okay. She's doing something then. It's not just a cottage industry. She's not a mum who just has a cleaning company. Oh, she's the cleaner. Hell, my mother would just absolutely argue with everybody that I'm incapable of cleaning, and she's not wrong. It's not my best trait. I am better with a spreadsheet. And so, it all came with the proof. People went quiet over the years, stopped asking, stopped making comments. And then when the success comes through, then they speak differently to you. So it was, I didn't feel that it was an uphill climb, and it sounds as though it was, but honestly, I kept my own counsel. I'm always more interested in other people than I am in myself. I had a family to take care of. I was always extremely busy, and we pushed through, and now look where we are. It just happened. But it was at a time and an era where, because I was based from home, that it was perceived that I must be a cottage industry and not really amounting to anything. And you put a cottage industry together with domestic cleaning, and you really have got a recipe for you are the lowest possible option. And people did not take me seriously. They didn't see me for who I was and I am, and what I was capable of doing. But do you know what? I can look back over the last 24, 25 years and say, I've watched them all come and go, and I'm still here.
That's amazing. And I remember you mentioned about being taken seriously when we met. We met at the House of Lords at this round table for female founders, and it was extremely compelling what you said around being taken seriously. So what are your thoughts on being taken seriously, and how it doesn't actually really matter what people think, and how as long as you trust yourself and you know yourself, you don't have to push on being a specific type of founder or person or boss. I had this. Like I said, I started my company way more recently than you, but when I started, thought, okay, well, in order to be successful, I have to act as if. I have to speak like a CEO. I have to have the morning routine of a CEO.
Absolutely not.
Right?
No,
it made me miserable.
Don't.
I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m. and do a cold plunge. It's just like, no.
No, stop.
Right?
Absolutely Do not do that. Please do not do that. You do not need to do any of that. That is fitting with the translation of hustle culture. So if you got the hustle culture in employed life, you do not need to translate it out here into self-employed life or even anywhere in the SME sector necessarily. It's a whole different culture. It's absolutely fine. Please leave it behind. It does not need to be part of you now. In terms of validation, the point that you were referring to was the memory I had of somebody very significant in business in our geographical area on the south coast who asked me about my business, and I said that was home-based and that it was Domestic Angels, and that person said, "Oh, well, you'll get an office when you get big enough." And it's like, oh. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to pay rent somewhere else? Why would I want a mortgage somewhere else? And of course, nowadays, having a home-based business, completely acceptable. Everybody does it. It was becoming acceptable before pandemic. Now it's really acceptable. So I was just ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So when this person, he said this, was I looking for his validation? No. What I would have liked is more support to grow the business, but because I was considered like, well, you're home-based and it's domestic cleaning, it was like, you're never going to amount to anything. So there was no point in them wasting their time on me. That was what happened. That was the reality. So I found it difficult to access training and knowledge that would have been useful at the time. Very different now. Very different now. So I think I didn't need that other person or other people to validate me. I was quite comfortable with validating myself, even more so now. But it would have been lovely to have accessed all that knowledge rather than having to learn it all for myself. On the other hand, because I had to learn it all for myself in a different way, I learnt it without the constraints and limitations that they were all subjected to. So it worked in my favour.
That's beautiful. And do you have any advice on how to teach yourself stuff? Because I think that's the most rewarding part of being a founder, in my opinion. You get to learn a bit of everything. I, like we were saying off camera, had limitations around the type of person I was and the kind of things I could do well. And since doing this, in the spirit of having to do a bit of everything, I've learned that I can learn anything. And like, obviously I'm not good at everything, but it's like unlocking different levels of a video game. And I find different resources help me. But what do you find helpful when you're trying to learn new information and trying to take your business to like a new level and your skills?
Well, this year, AI all of the time. Oh, what do we know about this? What do we know about that? I mean, Chat and I have got the closest relationship.
Me too.
Yeah, I can't say there's any love involved, but we have the closest relationship, chatting about all sorts of things. And it's great because I've got something that will talk with me as fast as my head's working. I've not had that before, and I can actually have that interaction without having to go off to the library, look something up, or try and ring round and ask, do you know anything about this, or do you know anything about that? I can access it straight away. It's an absolute miracle to have that in my life as an entrepreneur and a business leader. And yes, of course, do you remember you are the expert of you and you're the expert of your life, not the AI. And you do need to filter and remember it doesn't always tell you what you need to know. It can deviate and it can muddle things up. But you know what? I have got a brain and I can sort that out. What's more, I'm a mum. I've seen it 100 times. I'm very well trained in this.
Yeah. Speaking about being a mum, I feel like there's a lot of intentionality with how you designed your business in order to fit around other parts of your life. What advice do you have to mums who feel like they really want to start their own thing, but they're unsure of how they can make it work and prioritize their family as well?
Okay, so design your business for your family, not around, it's for, so that you have that balance right from the start, and do something that you find relatively straightforward. Don't try and conquer the universe. Do you know what? We're all much more talented than we realise. As alluded before, my mum was, if she sort of domestic clean, don't be daft, Sam, don't be daft. But what I didn't know is that I'm actually really good at business. Of course, I didn't do that at school. It's not something we ever discussed, and it's not something anybody anticipated in my life, but it's completely natural and normal for me. And I believe it's very natural and normal for an awful lot of mums. So if you're a mum who's a strong communicator, a strong organiser, and let's face it, if you're running a family, you're that, and you're probably balancing the housekeeping budget and any number of other things, then you're probably going to be a really good business owner, because those are basically all of the skills you need to run a business. Strong communication, good customer service, high organisation skills. It all just comes together. So choose a business subject that feels comfortable for you, and don't try to conquer the universe. And do you know what? There are ways of achieving this quickly through franchising. Because franchising is a business in a box, and there's any number of different franchises out there to use. So Domestic Angels is a franchise for domestic cleaning, so other mums can have their own lives and control over their time, life and money. But there are others out there. There's loads for kids' activities, if you're comfortable with that. There's loads for kiddies' dance, if you're comfortable with that. It doesn't have to be a big retail unit with a burger bar in it. That's not true. That's just one small part of the franchise industry. And the beauty of the franchise is it's a business in a box. So all the processes, all the systems are already worked out for you. So you don't have to invent them from scratch on a blank sheet of paper, which is what I did. So there are different ways of getting yourself underway with the business. But I get the main thing I would say is, if it's something that you think you'd like to do is get into business for yourself as a mum, do it. Don't think too hard about it. Do it.
This is so powerful, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of mums and help them. I want to talk more about franchising, but before we do, because I think it's something that's not often spoken about, at least not in the circles that I am.
No, it's not. It's not talked about enough.
So let's ungatekeep franchising. Okay. But before we do, I want to quickly round up this whole myth around work-life balance.
Yeah.
And when the Global Entrepreneurship Week was happening and I was going to all these female founder events, it was such a topic of work-life balance for women, because the expectation is that they're meant to do this, this and this, and is work-life balance real? And it had this really scarcity sacrificing language that I really didn't like.
Wow.
And I wanted to get your opinion on what you think around work-life balance and how you can actually create a mixture, again, through intentional design of your business and your life that works for you.
Just accept right up front that the phrase work-life balance or lifestyle business is just where people are struggling to understand the concept. They're trying to label things, and the label hasn't been created that really fits what somebody like me does or has been doing for years. And I know several other mums who do and operate the way that I do with their own businesses. And this is why I come back to saying, create a business or choose a business that fits with your family. Now, family evolves over the years. They grow, they change, they come out of nappies, they change schools, all sorts of things happen. And the beauty of having a business that fits with your family is you can make the business fit with it through all of those stages. So I remember when our son, at one point, he was sleeping through to 7 o'clock in the morning, but I was awake at 5. So I would get on the computer and do my organising and admin at that point in time, so that when he was awake, the day was all set, and then we'd do stuff together, and he'd go off to nursery, and then I could do other things. So you can adjust yourself around whatever happens to be going on at that point, that stage in your family life cycle. When you get to the point where, when they start doing sports and you want to go to watch the rugby match or the cricket match on a Wednesday afternoon, or you've got sports clubs on a weekend, you just want to do them. They are at school at other times and they're at sleep at other times. That doesn't mean you have to work 16 hours days. Please don't. I didn't.
Thank you. I think we need to talk about this as well, because the hustle culture of like good founders have to work like 8 to 8.
No. You're going into a whole new thing there. This is where hustle culture goes very wrong in the self-employed arena. When you okay, I need to try and find the right words here to describe this, but I've met these people so many times, and they are just ramming it. The way they talk is as though they are doing those 15-hour days, 7 days a week, or I do it 6 days a week, and on the 7th day I run a marathon and hike over the Himalayas, and then I take the kids out skating. It's like, no, you don't. In which world do you do? And if you are doing that, you've got it really wrong. And that was my first sort of line of understanding them. It's like, that can't be right. That is right or lying. And then what you find out when you've been in business long enough, as I have, and you look back at these people, they've generally got at least 2 divorces behind them by now. The cars that were or are on their drive are leased cars. They don't own them, and they don't own the house they live in either. So the whole thing is a myth or a lie, depending on how you want to interpret it. So beware of the culture that suggests that you need to do all of those hours every day as a founder. It is not true. You will be much more productive if you create space, stay in touch with your instinct, and find your flow. You will be super effective. It is nothing unusual for me to do a day's work in 2 hours flat first thing in the morning, because that's when my energy's best. That's great. So I don't need to do that rate of knots on a computer for another 4, 6, 8 hours a day. That's what I've done then. I'll come to London and have a chat for the rest of the day.
That's beautiful. What do you feel around, like, because when you're a founder, there's no one telling you when to stop. You can always keep going. And so it's kind of hard. I find it hard to close the laptop because I feel guilt if I've done all my tasks for the day and I finished early, because I'm just productive and I can work quickly and I can do, my brain is, like you said, 20 million tabs open at once. If I do it properly, I can get everything done in 3 or 4 hours.
Great.
But I see the other people in my office or my incubator and they're there all day. And so you think, I need to keep sprinting a marathon and I need to keep working, like you said. And so how do you let yourself close the laptop and live your life?
I'd have to, first of all, take away your question and say, why do you feel like that? Why? Ask yourself why. There is the answer. The answer is because you perceive that that's what's required of you, because that's what's around you. It's not true. Mm-hmm. It's not a lie. Mm-hmm. And you are not them.
Yeah. I call it the prison of should. The prison of should. I should be this way. I should work this way. I should talk this way. And I'm working through now leaving the prison of should. And I think it's something I find very compelling about your journey. But I want to spend more time now on I find this word so hard to say, on gatekeeping, franchising. Yes.
Well, it's such a mystery, isn't it? People don't talk about it, or if they do, they think it's a set of burger bars or a train line.
Yeah, what is franchising? For anyone who's watching and listening and doesn't really understand that it's not just like taking a restaurant and putting it somewhere else.
Franchising in this context is when you can invest in a business in a box. So when you start a business, you are going to invest. You're going to invest your time and your money, even if you go from a blank sheet of paper, okay? Because you've got nothing. You need to learn everything. You need all your processes. You need your software. You need your intellectual property, all those kinds of things you didn't even know you needed to own or learn. It will happen. Franchising is the cheat route, because you, instead of investing that money over time, you invest it up front and get a business in a box. And so for like with Domestic Angels, it's got all the processes in about how to find your customers, how to manage the customer journey, how to find your staff, how to manage the staff journey, we call them angels, how to onboard them. And we have a software to support all of this. So we provide the software that you need to manage it and to book the jobs, and then that integrates with accountancy software, which we manage for you. So it takes away all of those things you think, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It's already done and prepared. And in most franchises, or a really good franchise, and you should always do your research on these things, will be based on years of experience. So the business in a box for Domestic Angels is based on all the years of experience I had before I converted it to franchise. Mm-hmm. So all of the things that I did where I burnt my fingers and went, oh, you don't want to do it like that. Or the great things that I found out about, the positives. So you don't have to go and reinvent the wheel yourself. Of course, people will, because they're their own person, their own personalities, and however much you say, if you just follow the process, you'll be fantastic. I go, oh, and I'm off this way. Come back. And all of the intellectual properties there, the design work is done, you've got teams supporting you, you've got managers supporting you, we have team meetings every week, we have termly meetings when we get together, we do all the training. I'm the one who's looking at the legislation all the time and what's coming down the road at us in terms of the economy and law and what we need to do and evolve. You as a franchisee, you don't need to think about that. That's my job. And then I use our experts around us, our human resources expert, Lisa, or our IT guy, Andy, or Emma, our accountant, to create the solutions and roll it out to you. So franchising is actually very sophisticated and is very secure. Franchise businesses have a significantly small failure rate compared to people who go it on their own. So it is the safe bet, without a shadow of a doubt. And of course, it's not for everybody. But unfortunately, as you quite rightly pointed out, very little about it is known in the United Kingdom. In the US, it's big. Loads of people have franchises. It's completely normal. Completely normal. So it's about making it normal in this country instead of having a misperception around it of what it is. It's not a train line. It's not always a burger bar. And it's not an MLM. That is really important to understand. So do you know what I mean by MLM, a multi-level marketing?
No, I was about to ask you, but
okay. Have you heard of thing? I don't want to say a company name. I want to be careful here. So there's options out there where and women, it's mums who often get caught by this because they will just want to earn a few quid a week to help with the household income. So it'll be selling beauty products.
My grandma did this. I don't want to name a brand either, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And they're called multi-level marketing. So that works in a pyramid structure.
Yes.
Where somebody will recruit you, but the person above that recruited them and that and that. Yeah. And so the trickle down of profit is very minimal. So you would have had somebody like your grandma working really, really hard. Yes, I'm sure your grandma would have earned some decent pin money, but not nearly as much as she deserved for what she was doing. And there's not the protection within an MLM that you get in the franchise structure. It's much, much smaller. It's much more simplistic. You don't have all of the training and the support, and it's much more cutthroat. That's probably the better way to describe it. It's much more cutthroat. And still, those mums are investing their money up front to be able to get their cosmetics and their brochures, or their kitchen utensils and brochures. They pay up front to be able to go and do that thing. And it breaks my heart when mums do things like this, because all they want to do is use what hours they've got available, what energy they've got available, to do something that generates a bit of income to contribute towards the household in amongst everything else they're doing.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that's what it was called, but yes, and I'm going to leave some stuff in the description for people to look more into it. In terms of franchising, before we talk about how one can franchise their business.
Yes.
I want to talk about from the side of someone who's interested in potentially finding out more about what franchises they could invest in. As someone who has experience, what are green and red flags to look for in terms of, I have some money to invest, I want to invest in a franchise, where should I start looking and what should I be mindful of?
Okay, so I'm really, really pleased to be able to say that Domestic Angels are accredited members of the British Franchise Association. So accredited members means we are validated most years, I think it's every year, where they carry out an audit to make sure that we've got our ops manual in place. So that's all the processes, how to do everything is there, that our financial situation stacks up, that we are profitable, that we are valid, that we're not about to go bump, that the business spreadsheets that we're sharing with prospective franchisees stack up, that we're doing what we say we do, what we do on the tin, and conform to at least to their standards. We go way above them, but that's my choice, because I need to do more. I always need to do more. So British Franchise Association, look for a BFA logo to make sure that the company is a member. You can check online as well for that. You'll be able to see us all in there. Red flag is, if it doesn't feel right, probably isn't. And the green flag is if it feels comfortable. No, wrong. Green flag. Make sure that not only do you have an interview with the franchisor, but you have an interview with one or two of the franchisees who are already in the network, and talk to them, find out, are they your people? Are they your tribe? Because these are the people who are going to be there for you on the rainy days, and they're going to be there for you on the high days. These are the people who are going to become your business family instantly. They're going to be your cheerleaders, and they're also going to be there with the tissues when you don't feel great. So are they your tribe? I think those are probably the extremes that I would go for. So British Franchise Association accreditation. If it doesn't feel right, probably isn't. And are they your tribe?
This is so powerful. And again, it's advice that will resonate for people regardless of whether they're franchising or not, of doing your research and trusting your gut. But I, again, will leave the information in the description about what you said. Now from the other perspective of if you're thinking of franchising your business, and also just around standardizing procedures. This is something that's been on my mind. You were talking about ChatGPT earlier and AI. I, like I said, started my business early this year. And I started as I am a solo founder. It started as me just doing things that I'm good at that people need my help with. Which meant that it was a bit random. And when it's random, it's hard to scale and it's hard to repeat. And so I've been spending some time going with chat and creating SOPs, standard operating procedures. And that is something that is really important. So as a franchisor, is that the correct term?
Franchisor, yes.
Franchisor, what is the best practice for creating standardization around your processes so that you can remove yourself from your business and step away a little bit more?
Yeah, well, remember, you are a solopreneur right now. So it's actually really tricky to write a procedure because you know it and who else needs to know it? Yeah, it's a tricky business. And also procedures can exist for no good reason, but at the same time, you might not realise that a procedure is required because we don't know what we don't know, which is one of the big rules in life. So I would start with one where you think you're going to delegate some sort of process to a bookkeeper or an accountant or a VA. That's a good place to start. How do you like things done? And do work with AI to do it. AI is very useful for this. I found chat very, very useful at creating procedures and updating our procedures, in actual fact, enhancing them and making them stronger, because they will evolve over time. Fundamentally, they might be the same, but you become stronger, so the procedure can come stronger. So don't think you've done them once and that's it, because it probably isn't. So my tip to you would be use AI. Don't waste your time too much, though, because you don't need to stay in that group office to write SOPs just because you need to stay there 4 more hours because they're there. Just pick out the one that you need because you're going to delegate that piece of work out to somebody else to do.
Yeah. And I've started to get my team to do it as well. I was like, before I tell you what I think you're meant to do, what do you think your job is? Write it out and break it down, and then we'll chat about it. And I found that really useful in creating more written structures around the work. But if someone already has that like document of what they do, they've got their SOPs, what can they do? What's the next step in terms of creating a structure for franchising?
If they wanted to convert to franchise. Okay, so converting to franchise isn't just about the processes. So all of the processes we've just been talking about are the ones that would go into the ops manual. And they're not necessarily the processes that you would give to a franchisee, because there's a whole load of processes that I have as a franchisor that my team use. And they're not overly documented. So I don't get them to write things down. We chat, because do you know what? I recruit my team because they're experts. So if I ask the accountant to write down a process, she doesn't need to do that. But we can talk about it, and I can challenge her and say, well, actually, I'd like this to come out of it and that to come out of it. So yeah, careful where you're going with that one, because you really want those experts to blossom and bring everything that's positive and brilliant about them into your pot. In terms of converting to franchise, think about how you want your relationship with the franchisee to be. What is the pain you can take away for them? So we absolutely specialise in mums. No doubt about it, unashamedly, totally feminine. And we know that mums are not comfortable with numbers and bookkeeping. Yes, we can do what we do for going to the shops and running the household, but when you put it in a business context, it's a bit of an ouchie. So we took that problem away by creating a process that exists, a framework, if you like, that exists between us, the franchisee, and the bookkeeper. So think about what those types of solutions might be. If you were creating a dance franchise, are you going to let the franchisee develop all the dances, or are you going to develop them and train each of them, and therefore how are you going to deliver that training? Is there a theme involved? Is it cowboys and Indians next term, and therefore are you going to supply the equipment, or do they supply the equipment? How do you control the standardization in the equipment that's being supplied? And when I say equipment, I mean like fancy dress for the kids to put on. So if they're going to put headbands on to be Indians, and the franchisee chooses that from their local supplier, then the ones in Essex might all be orange and the ones in Manchester might all be purple. Are you okay with that? Or do you want them all to be your corporate colours?
Yeah.
So think about what are those things that you want to develop for the franchisee so that they are replicating what you already do, and make it easy for them, take the pain bits away. But definitely don't try and create a franchise from scratch. Run the business first, learn what you're doing, become a master of your own business, and then look at how to convert to franchise. And I had the great joy of becoming the live client of the Bournemouth MBA cohort at Bournemouth University. And they did all the analysis for me. They looked at the marketplace, not just for domestic cleaning, but for franchising and what was happening in the economy overall. So they looked at it in lots of different aspects and involved me in that process and reported back to me a few times. So they gave me a really good direction on what I needed to do, where the weak points were, where the risks were, and where the strengths lay. So it's about using your brain. It's a project. It's quite big.
Yeah. What's one thing, apart from what franchising actually is, that you wish business owners knew before getting involved with it?
With franchising?
Yes.
That it is their business to focus on their self-belief and my business to be the expert.
Yeah. It's very interesting. On the theme of being an expert, on this podcast, we're all about being bossy.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about your relationship with the word bossy, if you've ever been called it and whether you're reclaiming it.
I can't remember being called bossy as a kid, but I know that lots of girls were, and I know it was quite a normal thing. And I may have just happily ignored the fact that I was called bossy. But I do know that it had impact on girls when I was a kid, because it basically, you'd have a girl doing the same thing as a boy, and the boy would be, yeah, good on you, mate, you're a leader, but the girl was bossy. So it was the perceptions, the role model perceptions about how you're meant to behave. If somebody calls me bossy now, I say, oh, great, that's fantastic, let's have a chat. And people actually do still think twice about it. Like, oh, what do you mean? Let's have a chat. Well, why did you call me bossy? Because it's still got quite negative connotations, negative vibes around it, hasn't it?
Yeah. Looking back to, we were talking about young girls when you were saying that it's something that's used as like negative, something to put people down. What would you say to any young women listening to this that are thinking of starting? What would you say to yourself like 20 something years ago when you were starting, looking back? One bit of advice.
Be yourself, everybody else is taken.
Lovely. Amazing, Sam. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? I'm going to link everything down below, but how can they work with you and Domestic Angels?
Okay, so you can find me online. You'll put all of the links down below. I love a chat, and I really do want to meet more mums who want to start their own businesses. Yes, of course, I want to meet mums who would like to start their own Domestic Angels business. That would just be absolutely superb. But I love meeting mums who are curious about starting their business, or who have got businesses underway and need just a bit of a chat, somebody who understands, who's ahead of them, who they feel they can trust and talk to as a sounding board. I'm always happy to do that. You'll find me on the end of the phone and online, but also like yourself, you'll find me at the House of Lords, where I get involved because I speak up and campaign and celebrate women in business all of the time. I also hold public office at BCP Council at the moment, but that's all going to evolve. What else do I do? I do loads of other stuff. I'm trustee of a charity as well.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
tell us more about the charity.
Oh, it's the Health Bus. The Health Bus. So we help people who are homeless. We go out to them and help prevent them getting in worse situation medically, and that includes mental health, than perhaps they might have got into. So it's quite a big deal. It's quite revolutionary. It's very effective and it's very successful. And we're looking at routes to market to roll it out across the country. That's our dream.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we're going to have you back because there's so much more I need to ask you. But do you have any closing remarks for this conversation?
Gut instinct. Your instinct is telling you the truth. It doesn't lie. Listen to it. Be conscious. If you're ever feeling stuck or upset or something doesn't feel right, walk away, create space. Create space, give yourself time to think. It's okay. You do not need to make any snap decisions. It's okay. Please, just everybody, be calmer, be true to yourselves, because you're all incredible. And we touched on the hustle culture, and that's come from an age of industrial revolution, and before that it was landowners and serfs. It was all designed for the benefit of the masters. We are now in an era of consciousness where more and more of us are able to be masters of ourselves, and it's okay.
That was, wow, mic drop. That was so powerful. Thank you so much for your time, your insight, your experience. You are so empowering, inspiring, and amazing.
Thank you so much for inviting me along. It's a real privilege and an honour to come here today. And yes, of course, I'd love to come back.
Yeah.